Inspired by John Allen Large, Red Dice Diaries, RPG Bugbears, and by Lee Rimmer, your humble GM's, did a video called Pedantry and the Burden of Knowledge in Role-Playing Games. I'd like to share with you one of the things that bugs me in a few role-playing games. It's the use of fire. According to the Player's Handbook, a firebolt will ignite any flammable material that's not being carried or held. And so much. And I'm sure it's similar in lots of other role-playing games. Fire magic will have a similar mechanic. But igniting isn't the same as causing a fire. My parents had in my parents' house for 20 years. The heating and hot water depended on a real fire. Every morning we'd make a fire out of logs and coals and to heat the house and the water. I have a lot of experience building fires, and I know that the wood, it's fairly easy to start to ignite a fire, but to have the wood, have wood which will continue burning, it needs, we'd receive regular shipments of wood. It would need to be stacked carefully and aired in a dry place for 3 to 6 months before it would be at a stage where it would really burn and spread and give out heat. If it doesn't have that, if it was left exposed to the weather, it would give out hardly any heat, and it would probably go out. Even after you've ignited it, it would burn on the surface, and then there'd be too much water in it. It would stop. The fire would go out. We lived that was in the south of England. Most wood that you come across in this kind of climate would be whether in a city or in a forest, in nature, on a ship, will not burn easily. You might start a fire, but it will go out in seconds, maybe in minutes, but it won't turn into an inferno in this kind of environment, except maybe in a long, hot, dry summer. Most wood will not burn like that. In contrast, similarly for other materials, for example, thatch, the grass roofing material used in the south of England, is usually damp. It's been rained on, and though it's closely packed and it's protected from, it's fairly waterproof. It has some. It won't burn easy. There's not a lot of oxygen in there for it to suddenly sort of set alight, and it's not kindling. The thing, it doesn't burn nearly as it might smolder, but it won't spread like wildfire, and it won't burn to a crisp like paper. We're not in sort of Tokyo firestorm kind of material with thatch and most wooden cities in a wet environment. But in contrast, here in Spain, between the 1st of May and November, it's illegal to have a barbecue or do other activities which might provoke a forest fire. It's a big problem here, and so it's very tightly controlled. Similarly, in cities, in historic cities, one of the most important laws, patrols at night, their prime function, their prime responsibility was to check that there were no unattended fires and that fires had been properly put out, and the fines would be very heavy for people who hadn't properly put out their fires, because fire in a mainly wooden city was a big risk. And if you intentionally start a fire, if you use fire bolts or fireballs within a city, And whatever your motivation, whatever you're fighting, doesn't matter. You'd probably be breaking one of the most seriously regarded laws of the cities and be guilty of a serious crime and minimum be exiled, but fined and exiled. But possibly even depending on the damage it provokes, you might well have a death sentence on your head, because forest fires, city fires and things, they're not easily controlled. Similarly, in a dungeon, safety props that hold up the ceilings, if you just fire off fireballs and firebolts, you might be not all dungeon corridors are just chiseled out of hard granite. Some are with looser material and supported by uprights, which are typically made of wood, which were typically made of wood in our history, and they if they're weakened by fire, they might groan and collapse. The fire can use up the oxygen. There might be coal down here. There is a city in North America which basically is over a coal mine, and something started a fire in the coal mine 30 years ago or something. That coal mine is still burning. There's no way. They've had to abandon the city. It's an abandoned city with a fire in a coal mine burning under it, and they just are not able to put out that fire. There should be starting fires should not be quite as easy to control and as predictable necessarily as the players want it. Just because you have material there doesn't mean it's flammable, and if it is flammable, how's it going to burn? You don't know. My name is Caius. I like role-playing games, and I'd like to see you in them in the future.